Hi, my name's Chris Sarles, and I'm the owner of Sarles Sawmill here in South Alabama. Um, we're going to be doing a video series discussing what to expect when you come to our sawmill and to really set better customer expectations. Today, we're going to be talking about what makes a sawlog because there seems to be a lot of confusion from our customers about what that is. So, to start off, a saw log is generally at least 8 inches on the small end. Um, a lot of people measure the big end and they think, oh, I've got 20 inches and I'm going to get all these boards and I can get, five 2x4s wide and, however many that is tall. But the fact is, we have to cut the log based off the small end of the block that we have. And when we do that, it wastes the extra wood on the big side. And the reason for that is, we can't cut diagonally. We actually have to have something there to process. And so that's the first thing. Before you bring your logs, be sure to check them. Be sure they're at least 8 inches on the small end. Uh, the other thing is the straightness of the log, and that you have to have a log that's big enough if it's got a bow or a crook in it that you still have something left over when you get done straightening it to actually cut lumber out of. So if you imagine like a rectangular prism going through the log, that's just as big as we can possibly get it. That's what's going to be cut when we put it on the sawmill. The very first thing we're going to do is cut a cant, and that is basically just a squared up log. And all the slabs are usually going to get gone to the burn pile unless you request them. So once we have that cant, then we can bust it up, cut it down however you want. Uh, so other things that may affect what a saw log is saw logs don't have cat faces, or if they do, they're big enough that you still get enough product left over after you saw the cant that you can cut, dimensional lumber or whatever kind of lumber you're looking for. Uh, and so cat faces always go to the core of the tree. Very rarely is there any time where it doesn't go all the way to the core, and that's halfway, usually halfway in between. That's the tree grew crooked. So once the tree is cut up into a cant, if we don't have any cat faces, you're usually pretty good. The other things that can affect it are if you brought a treetop up here, or you have like something like cedar that's notorious for having lots of knots or little limbs sticking off of it. What we want is all those limbs to be sawed off flush with the log, and we're willing to cut knotty wood up. Just be aware that if you cut it up in small uh, boards, that it's likely to fall apart if the knots or the pieces of the limb, the way it's turned when it's cut, extend all the way through the width of the board. Typically, that breaks all the strength. Now, what we won't do is saw knotty wood up into dimensional lumber because someone might take that lumber, use it for rafters in a roof, or purlins to go over a barn. Someone's walking out across there, they can't see it under the tin, they don't know it, and all of a sudden that knot uh, in the board turns loose and it falls through. Someone can get hurt, and we don't want our name associated with bad lumber and people getting hurt. So if we're going to saw dimensional lumber, and that's like 2x4s, 2x6s, we're going to want that wood to be pretty much knot free or have very few knots in it. And we can saw it up for you. Now, on knotty wood, we have no problem sawing the knotty wood up in the board. Something that's just going to be like an inch thick, 6 inch, 8 inch wide. Usually, that's wide enough that you don't have to worry about the boards falling apart. So most knots aren't going to go that big, unless you have like a oak tree or something that's got real big um, limbs that come off of it. So other things that can affect it, besides the knottiness of the wood and the cat faces. Sometimes on oak trees and occasionally on poplar trees, usually just near the bud. When you cut the tree open, there'll be a hollow spot in the middle of the tree. And usually there's a big knot or big limb sticking off somewhere near where this hollow spot develops. However, uh, it doesn't always have a limb, and you just don't always know it. You really don't know what you're going to find in a tree like that until you cut it open. So once we cut it open, we see, and also beside it can also have kind of like a cavity in a tooth, it can have decay forming, and so we call that a doty spot. And that doty spot is almost always in oak trees, and it's kind of like that cavity beginning to form, and so the wood in it's real spongy, very moist, and it just falls apart. And unfortunately, sometimes there's just no way to know. I hate for anyone to bring lumber, bring trees up here, and then be disappointed we couldn't get anything out of them. But it does happen from time to time, and to the best of my knowledge, there's no way to avoid it. Other things that can happen is on cedar trees you have a lot of what we call doty, but it's just the area on the tree where it's kind of like almost like died or dried and broke apart, and sometimes it's really moist as well in there. And usually cedar trees, if they have it at the bottom, it normally goes through the whole tree. Sometimes you get lucky and you can cut it, keep cutting the end off, and get far enough up that you get past it. It doesn't usually happen. Usually the tree, if it's doty on the end, is going to be doty through the whole tree, and that causes the tree basically to, we'll cut it up into boards and we can try to plane it. Sometimes it falls apart, and sometimes it holds together. Some people love the look, some people hate the look. It's just not high grade lumber when it falls apart like that, and unfortunately, that's just something that cedar does. I really don't know what causes it to do it, or any way to predict whether it's going to have it in it or not until you saw that tree down and look at the butt cut of it and see does it look solid or does it look doty, and it just kind of looks crunchy like a bunch of crunched up cornflakes in there. If it's doty, it's really just falls apart. So one thing I wanted to go back and mention too about the cat faces and pine. Sometimes you do have cat faces that we can saw, and the wood has turned into what northerners typically call fat wood. Down here we call it lighter, and that's usually where the lighter comes from. Most that we get, sometimes we dig up stumps or saw lighter, and I've seen a few trees that the whole bottom 8 foot of the tree had turned into lighter. That's really rare. But that occasionally that will be solid. It's very rare, and it'll also be like almost a crystal clear amber color. And so we can take that and run it through the planer, and just put a flashlight behind it, and you can actually see the flashlight shining through the wood. It's so clear. It's really beautiful. You don't get a lot of it, and if you do get a lot of it, you're really lucky. But sometimes you can take that fat wood and bust it up and sell it, or use it to start fires. It burns ferociously. It has a black tar that falls out. It's very flammable. Um, and if you do put in that lighter wood up, if it is solid enough, you really want to seal it with something like polyurethane or oil-based polyurethane or oil-based lacquer, because that material is always going to have that turpentine trying to seep out of it. If you don't put a layer over it, it'll get really sticky, and it'll get covered with dust, and you won't be able to get it off, and pretty soon you'll have to sand it, and then it'll get dust on the other part, and it turns into this nightmare. You can never get all the dust off. So we kind of can beat that because we have dust collectors stuck in the dust up as we're planing it. But it's you really want that while it's good and clean to be polyurethane or something with an oil-based coating to prevent it from the turpentine from seeping through and getting really sticky on you. Oh, some of the other things that we see people do is sometimes I've had people bring limbs off trees over here. I'm willing to saw them if they're big enough, but honestly, they typically make really poor lumber because those limbs have had a lot of tension in them. And after I cut them, they move. I cut them again. It releases some tension. They move again. I cut them again. It releases tension. They move again. It just limbs don't make good saw logs. So besides that, other things. If you're dealing with pine, especially if you're dealing with what we call tight grain pine, which is like longleaf pine, it can lay out saw down for 6 months to a year, be perfectly fine, still structurally sound. If you're dealing with loblolly pine, sometimes it only makes it 3 months to 6 months, and you can tell by how tight the grains are in the wood. And we can tell you when you get here. Another way to do is look at the tree, and if the bark looks really thin, I almost call it like an Irish potato skin, then that wood and that tree is usually like a really high grade pine. If it's really thick bark and looks kind of shaggy or scraggly, it's typically like a loblolly species, and that wood just isn't as good a quality wood as the um, longleaf. Also, when you're got pine trees on the ground, you have to know, no matter which species they are, after 2 to 3 weeks, if they haven't been sawn up, they're going to begin a process called bluing. And now, what bluing is like this fungus that starts growing inside the wood, and it turns the wood almost like what's the blue tick hound color? It's kind of like these gray bluish spots and patches that form throughout the wood, and it gives this rustic barnwood look. Most people love this look. I have a lot of pine leaves out there for a long time just so it acquires this look. But some people do not want any of that in their lumber, and they only want pretty yellow pine. If you want pretty yellow pine, we need to get the logs here and get them sawn up before 2 weeks, 3 weeks is out, or you're going to start having blue spots in your wood, and there's just no way to prevent it. And also, major sawmills usually don't even take it at that point because they're real picky about not having any blue wood, and so that's just nature doing its thing. And so that pretty much is the gist of it. There are some special situations here and there. One thing I would advise you is if you're bringing your own wood, be exceptionally careful sawing down oak trees because, like I said, they can be hollow in the middle. You won't know it, and that tree can barber chair, which is where basically the front half of the tree snaps off and the back half of it shoots up the tree. The back half stays attached to where you're sawing, and it shoots up the tree maybe 10, 20, 30 foot, and snaps off, and the tree falls over backwards or falls over towards you, or can just basically do anything gravity wants it to do. And it gets a lot of people killed. I had a cousin about 3 years ago that died from that, and it's really sad. You don't want to end up like that, and so just oak trees are very dangerous. You need to respect them. Pine trees typically are a lot more forgiving. Cedar trees are more forgiving. Poplar trees can be hollow, and they can do the same thing. And if you don't have a lot of experience with the saw to know kind of like what it feels like when you saw into a hollow tree, I'd advise you to leave it alone. We do clear land and take trees down. Sometimes we're actually cheaper than a tree service, but we don't take any trees down without using our excavator. That way we have complete control over it. And our excavator is about 50,000 pounds. It takes about $600 to move it to your site, and usually about an hour to take it down. So if we use it for around $700 to $1,000, we can take most any tree down safely as long as we have room to lay it down. And that is a service we provide, and we're typically a lot cheaper than a tree service. Um, and That's not really asking a whole lot out of people. It takes me $300 every time I put the equipment on the trailer, unfortunately. And so I got to put it on there to haul it to your location and put it on there to haul it back. And so I'm only making $100 to come take that tree down for you. And it just is how it is. And it sounds like truckers are making a big killing, but they're not. It's just the way that all the regulations on trucking have put truckers in a bind, and it makes things real expensive. But anyway, back to the subject. Those are the things you're going to look for in your saw logs. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to take pictures and send them to me. It really helps if you take a tape measure and hold it across the butt of the tree or the big end of the tree and let me see it. And I can tell you, take some pictures of the bark, or if you had pictures when it's still standing with leaves or acorns or pine cones or whatever is on it. Anything that helped me identify that tree does help. Most of the time, if you're close, I'm willing to come out and visit you and tell you, what you got and what we can do for you. Man, Dad and I always have our cell phones with us. Unfortunately, Typically, when we're land clearing and stuff, we don't have any service out in the boondocks. And uh, also in the planer barn, it's a metal building and it's kind of like a Faraday cage. We don't get any cell phone signals in there. But if you leave a message, or the best thing you can do is send a text, we will get back to you. It may take a few days, but we will get back to you. We don't try to turn any business away, and we will let you know, you know, how we can help you. And please don't feel like you're annoying us. We want all the business we can get, and we appreciate you taking the time to come to our company and give us a chance to see what we can do for you. So, with that being said, I believe we've discussed about all we can talk about Sawlog. So, if you have any questions, please post them in the comments. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe and help us grow the channel. Thank you very much, and everyone have a good night.